What's going on, guys? Titus is back, and this time we're going to talk about how do we counter Tearlament. It's now all over the place in Master Duel, and some of you are probably tired of it. I, for one, love the deck, but I'm here to tell you how you can maybe play against it. We don't have the Bystials in Master Duel yet. The Bystials are dragon types that are related to the Albaz lore that target a light or dark monster, banish it, and then summon themselves. And then some of them have other effects when they hit the graveyard or when they are summoned to the field. We don't have those just yet, so our anti-tier options are slightly limited. So we're going to talk about some of the best ones and some counter points to why they should be used or why they shouldn't be used, and maybe some you haven't necessarily thought of yet either. So the main one I'm going to talk about, the big guy, the whole shebang, DShifter. DShifter is really, really good because it says all cards are now going to be in the banished instead of in the graveyard. So similar cards that also do this are things like Macrocosmos, right? Macrocosmos is a trap card. It is at 3 in Master Duel, and so it isn't only an SR. If you go first, it's really, really good. DShifter is good for both going first and going second, so that you can kind of do it whatever you want, as long as your deck can tutor around things that are banished. Macrocosmos, you could set up your board, set the Macrocosmos, flip the Macrocosmos as soon as you see a Tearlament card, and then you'll probably be pretty good. So it's pretty decent there. Another one would be like the Dimensional Fissure is another one of those. And this is only a rare, so this is even cheaper. So this is another good anti-tier option for going first, but going first only. So what are some things you can do going second? Again, Dimension Shifter, it is at 2 and it is a UR, it's a little expensive. Another great option, because we don't have the Bystials just yet, is DD Crow. DD Crow's great. You can target a card in the graveyard and banish it, and it's not once per turn, so if you open 2 of them in your hand, you can hit the fusion, like the Kit Kolos, or you can hit the girl that's doing the fusion, like the Merly, the Havness, or the Shiren. Hitting the Kit Kolos is always going to be the weak point of the deck for the most part, because they only have 1 Kit Kolos. So sure, they could do a thing where they do what we call the Yoinky Sploinky, where they get the Kit Kolos, summon it to the field, grab the Merly from hand, Kit Kolos effect, target the Kit Kolos, summon the Merly, Kit Kolos goes to grave. Kit Kolos triggers, it will mill 5. Merly will trigger, it will mill 3. And as long as they don't have a Shuffler in their grave already, DD Crow banish the Kit Kolos. If they don't play Crime, they can't add it back. So it's a decent hit, but if you think their deck doesn't have, if their hand doesn't have any gas, or you're playing on the luck side of the Gamba of the mill, you can just hit the Fusioner like the Havness, the Merly, or the Shiren. It doesn't really matter which one, just hit them. Even if they do the whole pitch the Rhino Heart for the Shiren thing, and then they want to summon out the Rhino Heart and then ditch another card, like, there's a bunch of things that you can do there, so just look for the most impactful card, hit it with a DD Crow. In the same vein as DD Crow, an alternative that is also not necessarily once per turn is Skullmeister. Skullmeister is when a card effect is activated in your opponent's graveyard, quick effect, send this card from your hand to the graveyard, negate. Done. It doesn't banish it like the DD Crow does, but it does stop the fusion, and if you can kill them on the next turn or set up your own negates, then you're actually pretty good. So people don't really think about this card as much, but I think it's a good budget alternative if you don't have enough UR, like I don't anymore because of my pulse. And so I think Skullmeister is really good that people might not necessarily talk about. It's only an SR. It's not that expensive. I think it's good to use if you're scrambling. 3 of these, 3 Skullmeisters, 3 DD Crows, and then 3 Shufflers of Medora, which are the super rare Shuffler, are a lot to go against Tearlament. So we will talk about the Ishizu cards. The Ishizu cards are very good in Tearlament and also good against Tearlament. So what if you don't know, the Ishizu tier deck uses the Ishizu retrains of Medora the Sword Oracle and Keldo the Sacred Protector. You also have Kelbeck and Agido the statue. So we put them in 2 categories, the Millers and the Shufflers. The millers are the Kelbeck and the Agito. They mill 5 from both people's decks. And then the shufflers, which is Keldo and Medora. If you're not playing Tearlament, and you're going to see a lot of it, and they shuffle they mill one of your shufflers that is in your deck, then you get to play against Tearlament now, because now you have a quick effect to target 3 cards and shuffle them back. So, say they do a Agito off of a Shiren effect. They mill 5. Oh, boom. They targeted, they milled one of your Medoras, and then now Medora affect chain against whatever they're using to fuse, shuffle it back, and then they're kind of at a standstill unless they have more gas. So I would recommend for a budget player to craft the 3 Medora at least, the 3 DD Crow, and the Skullmeister. That's what, 91, it's 30 per craft. So 270 of secret rare materials. If you're brand new, that's probably rough. If you're not brand new, you might already have DD Crows. Or you might have Skullmeisters for another reason or another. So that would be something to look into. Another odd tech that you could do is using cherries and having a Kit Kalos in your own deck. I don't recommend this. It is an option. Tearlament players would side cherries against other tier players so they could banish the Kit Kalos. Because most people were only playing 1, so you banish their Kit Kalos and then they have to add it back with a crime or kind of facilitate their plays differently. And so it's an option. No, it's an expensive option. If you already have them, it is good. You can use them. That's fine. If you don't, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but it is there if you want it. Another option, if you already have them, is the Ghost Spell. It does stop the special summon a monster from the graveyard effect. So it's a pretty good card to use. It will stop a play. You want a little bit more high impact with the banishing of the DD Crow, and DD Crow is cheaper. And I think Medora is also better, although Medora has to be in your grave already. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there, where it's not necessarily as easy to use. So it's good. I think I would use Skullmeister instead of it. It's a cheaper option, as I said. Another good thing to use would be Infinite Impermanence. Hitting the Kit Kalos or hitting the Rhino Heart, specifically the Kit Kalos. Like, imperming the Kit Kalos is really, really rough for some hands to play through if they can't go ahead and do what they were going to do and do some adding and use the Kit Kalos effect. So hitting Kit Kalos is good, but if they have Shiren in hand, they can kind of keep going. If they have the trap card and they set the trap card and then they activate the trap on your turn to negate a monster, send Kit Kalos, they get to mill 5 and negate a monster. So Impermanence is good. You probably already have them. They're probably already useful. I would play them if you have the space. I think Imperm is a good option. Another one for going first would be D-Barrier. It is strictly a going first option. It's not good for not going second. I mean, losing the die roll, it's a 50-50 chance in Master Duel. And so I can't recommend doing this, but it is there if you have nothing else. If you're starting out and you're brand new and you gotta do it, right? This is fine. It's fine. Remember, it's fine. It's not great. It's fine. Another one is more stopping them on your turn, because Tearlament plays on their turn and they play on your turn. Called by the Grave is great to stop them from playing on your turn. So usually an in-board would be a Rukolos plus a Merrily, or no, Rukolos plus an Elf with a Merrily in the graveyard. And then when they activate Elf target Merrily, you can Called by. That either stops the Merrily or forces the Shuffler, and so they don't have the Merrily on board anymore to do the mill, and maybe even have the trap card. So it slows them down, don't get me wrong. It's very good, and it will slow them down. It is useful. Also, imperming the Elf is not a bad option either if you kind of have enough gas to push through. So those are your kind of main deck options. Some people might ask about Nibiru. Nibiru is not that good against Tearlaments because Rukolos negates this effect. And so it's just kind of a dead card in your hand. Sure, stops one Root Kolos effect, and then it won't come back. But Tearlament doesn't care. They'll just kill you on the next turn for the most part. Like, they'll just do their thing. So this is not very good, and I wouldn't recommend. So I will recommend another card is Necro Valley. But because it's a UR, so it's not as strong. It's also kind of in the same realm as the Macrocosmos and the D-Barrier and the Dimensional Fissure, where it's kind of has to be going first on your turn. Necro Valley is good because it's a field spell that as soon as you start your turn and they have their board set up, you can activate Necro Valley, right? And then they can't play on your turn, and they can't recuperate, so you'll be able to kind of do stuff. So that's kind of why I would recommend Necro Valley and D-Fissure over the Macrocosmos, but even then, it doesn't slow them down when they're playing, so you're kind of looking for big blowouts going second, basically. Another card to even consider would be Evenly Matched, and this is more of a going second card, because some decks are not playing the Tearlament Crime. It's a counter trap. It will negate spells or traps. Some of them are choosing to play Herald of Greenlight instead, which negates the spell or trap by discarding a Shuffler or a Miller. So it's not a bad option because the deck doesn't actually put up any negates. It puts up monster interaction and pops and stuff like that. So it doesn't put up an Omni Negate to deal with this right here other than the trap card. So you could do it if you wanted to. If you already have them, play them. I mean, go build a going second deck with Dimensional Shifter and Evenly Matches and just kind of go crazy. So that is some of your option. Your big extra deck option going first is Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller hoses this deck. It absolutely just rinses this deck. If they don't open the Imperm, they kind of just lose the game. So Dweller is great. It just ends if you play rank 4s of any kind, level 4s, you should be playing Dweller. You could use Droplet if you really wanted to. Imperm is better in my opinion. It's just less cost. So try with the Imperms there. You could also make an argument for Super Poly if you want to, but remember that their cards will trigger off of you sending them to the graveyard. And so as long as it's like a Root Kolos, it would summon itself back, and then so it doesn't really do too much for you necessarily. And a lot of the decks are going to end on like Elf, Root Kolos, so you have to wait for the Merrily. The Merrily will do it. The Super Poly their board, and then the Merrily gets to trigger, and Root Kolos gets to come back. So Super Poly is decent at the right spot. It's good if you're playing Tearlament yourself. If you were playing Tier and you want counter Tier cards, play Super Poly. Pretty good card. So hopefully that enlightens you a bit about what cards you can use against Tearlament. I hope you have a lot of fun playing the deck as I do, and I hope you learn how to play against the deck, because it is a very skillful matchup, and it's very fun. So, like the video, subscribe. I appreciate you checking us out. We'll see you in the next one. Happy dueling, everybody.